Zaytuna Knowledge Resource presents the Fiqh of Ramadan, according to the great scholars of the Maliki Madhab, taught by Brother Shaykh Rami Nsour.
Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. The question was if there's a person and he or she cites this hilal, and for whatever reason their witness is not being accepted. Like if it's one woman, she sees the hilal, that's not enough to establish it for the Muslim community. We need two just males of the Muslim community. So she shouldn't say, well, it's not established for the community, I'm not going to fast. She herself has to fast. So once you see, there's a difference between establishing it for the community and you yourself knowing. So you could see the hilal, and you're only one person, or you're not, and you need a second a just witness, or that person's not a just witness, then he or she herself would have to fast, but it's not established for the Muslim community. So technically, you could have the entire Muslim community not fasting, and you're the only one fasting, or the opposite. Is there a question from the sister side? Like Ramadan, say you could have establishing Ramadan, the 30th day of Sha'ban, nobody's fasting, but you know it's the first day of Ramadan, so you're fasting. So everybody's not fasting, and you're fasting. Or the opposite, at the end of Ramadan, everybody's still fasting, but you saw the moon. You saw the hilal. So on that 30th day of Ramadan, it's Eid for you. You're not fasting. It's haram for you to fast because you know for a fact this is Eid. But everybody else, it's not Eid for them, and so they're not fasting. And so they are fasting. Is that clear? The opposite of the first incident. It could be the same too. If the whole entire community of the Muslims is fasting, and you didn't establish it, you might not be fasting. You only go along with the community if they've established it based on like Shari'i. They based it on Shari'i witnessing. You could have, like, for example, somebody a whole entire community, and this happens all the time. Oh, I called up my family in Libya, or I called up my family or I'm going according to Mecca. So the entire city or the entire masjid is going according to Mecca. That's not established it for you. So your entire masjid's fasting and you're not fasting. So it goes back to like the section on this, beginning the fast. You have to see the moon yourself, or have two just witnesses bring the news to you, or have a large group bring you the news, and that group is large enough that it's impossible for them to have lied. So if the entire community, say like here in Hayward, we have a large group of people that came down, and they bring me the news that two just witnesses saw it. And I hear it from so many different places that, so-and-so and so-and-so, those two just witnesses, they've seen the moon. So that would establish it for me. Either you have a large group bring you the news of two just witnesses, or two just witnesses bring you the news of a large group, or you actually meet the large group, or you actually meet the two just witnesses. But the point is that you have to know who saw it. Like what happens nowadays is that people carry the news, but nobody knows who saw the moon. So they'll say, New York's fasting, San Francisco's fasting. They'll just go by the message, but who saw the moon? So the point is just like we have to see the moon. So we left off last week on using a miswak, 23.4. Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. وَلَا بَأْسَ بِالسِّوَاكِ لِلصَّائِمِ. And there is no harm in using a siwak at any time during the day while you are fasting. So using the siwak, there's no problem using it throughout the day, as long as it's not moist. Either you take a regular toothbrush and you moisten it, or you have a miswak that's still moist. It has to be dried out for it to be permissible. Also, when he says the entire day, that's to clarify that there's another opinion, and that's the opinion of outside of the madhab, that after dhuhr time you no longer use the siwak. And the reason for that, the reason for the difference is the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that the smell that comes from the faster is more beloved to Allah than the smell of musk. And so the other scholars, Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Imam Shafi'i, said that smell begins to occur after dhuhr time. So using the miswak, you would remove that smell from the mouth. Imam Malik said that smell that was mentioned in the hadith is not coming from the mouth, it's actually coming from the stomach. So whether you use miswak or not, it's not going to remove that smell. It's just from he's saying that Imam Malik was saying that it's from the stomach because of the stomach not having food or water in it. So to him, using the siwak at any time during the day is permissible as long as it's dry. If it's not dry, like a moistened toothstick, or it's a fresh piece of wood that you're using as a toothstick, it's makruh, disliked to use. If any of the toothstick or the toothpaste, if a person's using toothpaste, and we went over that last week, the dislikeness of using toothpaste, but if a person goes ahead and uses it, or uses even a wooden toothstick, if it's toothpaste and it gets to the throat, that broke the fast. But if it's the dry toothstick, it has to actually, the dry piece has to actually get to the stomach. So if it's just a piece of the toothstick got to your throat and you spit it back up, your fast is fine. But if it actually gets to the stomach, then it breaks the fast. في جميع نهاره. And just as a mention on that hadith, that the smell of the that comes from the faster is more beloved to Allah than the scent of musk. This is one of what's called the mutashabih hadith. Because we as creatures, we as being created things, makhluqat, we have an idea of smells and good smells. So that's a created sense. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot have that. So when it says that that smell is more beloved to Him than the smell of misk, it seems like he has a resemblance to His creation. So whenever there's a hadith or ayah in the Quran where there is some resemblance to the creation, we have to say that it doesn't mean that. So either you do the tafweed, you just say that we believe it as Allah believes it. We don't our understanding of smells and good smells and liking good smells and not liking bad smells, that's a created thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot have any resemblance to that. So we either say we don't know the exact meaning of it, but we know that it cannot mean what it seems to mean, that it's similar to creation. Or we give the interpretation that some of the scholars meant, that it's just a figure of speech, meaning that he's pleased with the action of that faster. وَلَا تُكْرَهُ لَهُ الْحِجَامَةُ إِلَّا خِيفَةَ التَّغْيِيرِ. And bloodletting is not disliked except if doing it will cause overexhaustion. So if a person is going to have the traditional treatment of bloodletting, during Ramadan, it's permissible as long as it will not cause him overexhaustion. Overexhaustion means that by losing that blood, he's going to need to break his fast. So it might cause you to get exhausted losing that blood during that treatment, but you're not going to have to break your fast. So that's permissible. But if a person thinks that doing that bloodletting treatment, then it becomes makruh, it becomes disliked to do, because it's going to cause him to have to break his fast. Bloodletting is just a traditional type of healing where they say that some of the blood is not in the body, it's like old, and they have a way of describing it that it's not good blood anymore. So they'll cut it to let that bad blood out. I don't exactly know the whole theory behind the practice, but it is bloodletting and cupping are two things that the Prophet ﷺ did as for treatment. Go to a person and they make certain cuts on different parts of the body to let out that blood, or cupping where they take a cup and through suctioning they just kind of suction that area with the cups. So the cupping, there's no incision made, but the bloodletting, there's an incision made, and then blood is drawn out from that area. Then vomiting. وَمَنْ ذَرَعُهُ الْقَيْءُ فِي رَمَضَانَ فَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ. And if you vomit involuntary while fasting in Ramadan, you do not have to make up that day. So if vomit comes up, whether the food is changed or whether it's not changed, whether it's a little or it's a lot, even just if it's a little bit of food that you kind of regurgitate, if it gets to the mouth, then that does not break your fast, as long as you spit it out. If any of that regurgitated food just gets back to the throat a little bit, then the fast is broken. Now, if it happens overwhelmingly, the vomit comes out or that food comes out, and then you just your body like a reaction, you swallow a portion and it gets back to your throat, your fast is broken, but there's no sin. If a person is careless in spitting it out and then it causes it to go back to the throat, then it would break his fast, and he owes a kafara. He has to do an expiation. If it gets back to the throat, you have to make up the day. But now we just have to discuss whether there's a sin involved or not. There's a sin involved if the person was careless or did it intentionally. There's no sin if it was overwhelmingly. Once there's a sin involved, then we say there's also a kafara. He has to pay an expiation, feeding 60 people, fasting 60 days, or freeing a slave. And when they say the vomiting, that you have to spit it out, it's once it's gotten to a place where you can spit it out. Sometimes the food just comes right up to just in the throat area, and even if you try to spit it out, cough it, it won't come out. If it gets up to the throat and you can spit it out, if you cannot spit it out, then it does not break your fast if it goes back down to the stomach. But if you can spit it out, you have to spit it out. وَإِنِ اسْتَقَاءَ فَقَاءَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ. Now, if he causes himself to vomit, like if a person makes himself vomit, this was we were talking about if the vomiting was overwhelming. He ate a lot of food, then he drank a lot of water, or he ate some food and then he started doing some physical activities and it caused, or whatever happened, it just came overwhelmingly. But say he caused himself to vomit, and sometimes people do that if the food is just they have bad for whatever reason they force themselves to vomit. If they do that, even if everything that comes up is not re-swallowed, no portion of it is re-swallowed, that breaks the fast. The question is it considered a sin? It depends on whether he had a reason to do it or not. وإذا خافت الحامل على ما في بطنها أفطرت ولم تطعم وقد قيل تطعم. So now the discussion about pregnant and nursing women breaking their fast during Ramadan. If a pregnant woman is afraid on account of the child in her womb, she should break the fast. She does not have to feed anyone in expiation. It has also been said that she should feed people. So if a woman is pregnant and she thinks that by fasting it's going to harm the child that she's carrying, then it becomes an obligation upon her to break her fast so that she does not harm the child. Once she breaks the fast, when Ramadan is over, she has to make up the fast. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about this because some people think that when it says that, because in a nursing, for the pregnant woman, she does not have to feed. Meaning that she does not have to give one handful of food, about half a liter of food, for breaking the fast. But there is an opinion that she does give food, but that's not the dominant opinion. The dominant opinion is that there's an opinion that she does give food, but the dominant opinion is that she does not give food. وَلِلْمُرْضِعِ إِنْ خَافَتْ عَلَى وَلِدِهَا وَلَمْ تَجِدْ مَا تُسْتَأْجِرُ لَهُ أَوْ لَمْ يَقْبَلْ غَيْرَهَا أَنْ تَفْطِرَ وَتُطْعِمْ. If a woman is nursing the child and she thinks that by fasting it's going to decrease her milk production and that's going to harm the child, then she again has to break her fast. If she cannot find somebody else to nurse the child for her, either somebody she hires or somebody that will nurse the child for no fee, or she can find somebody else to nurse the child, but the child is not accepting somebody else. So if she can't find somebody else to nurse the child, or she can but the child is not accepting that person, and thus requiring the child to be nursed by the mother herself, and she thinks that fasting is going to reduce the milk production, then she does not fast. But once she breaks the fast, for every day that she's broken the fast, she has to feed. And this is not because she's done a sin like the kafara. This is just because the sunnah. This is what the sunnah is: that if a woman breaks her fast due to nursing, that she gives 1 mud of ta'am, which is half of a liter of food, for every day that she misses. But still, both the pregnant woman and the nursing woman have to make up that fast. So a lot of people have the understanding that once you give out food, you don't have to make up that day. But that's a misunderstanding. It's just a fidya. Here it's considered a fidya, or it's called a fidya. And if a person intentionally, without a reason, breaks a fast, he has to feed. That's considered a kafara. In both situations where you're feeding because you broke a fast during Ramadan, you still have to make up the day. The fidya or the kafara, the expiation that you're paying, there's making up the Ramadan, and then there's the expiation. They're two separate issues. So in any case, if a person is healthy, they have to have made up every single Ramadan they've ever missed. Whether it was intentionally, unintentionally, whether it was due to nursing, due to a pregnancy, for whatever reason, travel, sickness. As long as they get back to a point where they can make up their fast, they have to make it up. There's some women that think that just by feeding, they don't have to make up that fast. And this is, according to all 4 madhabs, she has to go back and make up those fasts. And then there's just a difference on who pays and who doesn't pay. Yeah, if she feeds if she breaks it because of nursing, if the child has wealth, when she feeds people, she has to give out from her own wealth. Unless her husband says, I'll pay for you, I'll give it out for you or her brother or something, but she has to give it out from her own wealth. No, for the nursing woman? The nursing woman, it's just 1 mud, which is half a liter of food, to one miskin, to one poor person for every day. So it's not like the kafara. The kafara is 60 muds to 60 different poor people. This is just one mud to one poor person per day. What's that? Yeah. If somebody is paying a kafara, they still have to make up their fast. So say a person missed a day intentionally without a valid reason, then they're going to have to feed 60 people or fast 60 days. So if he chooses to fast 60 days, he's actually going to fast 61 days. 1 day to make up that day from Ramadan, and 60 days to make up and to do the kafara. If you're going to do it up by fast, if you're going to do the kafara by fasting, it's 2 months for every single day. So that's why most people choose the feeding the people. So if you have 60 days that you have to make up, for every single day, 60 people. Now, what you can do is you can find 60 people, and then each person you're giving him 15 liters of food. That's half a liter of food for every day. So you're giving that person 1 month of food. You can't just come to one poor person and say, here's 60 portions of food. You have to come to 60. When it says feed 60 people, it's 60 different miskins. And each miskin is going to get half a liter of food. I know there's more questions. When we get to the section of kafara, if there's more questions on kafara, we'll talk about it once we get there. So is it clear on the pregnant and the nursing woman? Because that's something that really a lot of people have a misunderstanding of. If you don't fear the child, it's for your own. Yeah, it'll go back to breaking the fast. The question was, if a woman's pregnant, can she break the fast for herself, even though she fears that, she doesn't fear that fasting is going to harm the child, but the mother's not feeling good. That would go back to the sick person. So if she feels that she's going to get sick, or increase her sickness, or delay her healing, then she can break her fast, just like any other person can break it for fear of sickness. And again, it doesn't mean just like there's a difference between sickness and hardship. Fasting, there's a hardship in it. You're going to get thirsty. You're going to feel hunger. You're going to be tired. Those aren't things that you break your fast for, because those are hardships that are a part of fasting. It's actually you know by prior experience that it's going to get you sick. Or say you feel, some people can feel a cold coming on, and they know for a fact, if I fast tomorrow, it's going to get into a full-fledged cold or a full-fledged flu. But if I break my fast now and drink plenty of liquids and have some good meals, I can get over the sickness in 2 days rather than 10 days. So either the person's basing it on personal experience, or he has a doctor tell him, look, you have such and such sickness right now, you need to be eating or you need to be drinking. So a doctor tells him, or knows by experience. Once you make up, and if say a person is sick, or the pregnant woman feels she will get sick, or she will increase her sickness, or the regular person is feeling that as well, if they break that fast, now they've broken it with a valid reason. So the only thing they have to do is make up that 1 day, but they do not have to pay a kafara. They don't have to pay an expiation. The expiation is only, that's why when you hear the definitions, listen closely to the conditions, because the kafara is paid for a person intentionally breaking the fast without a valid reason. So those two things. So you understand from that, if it's done unintentionally, there's no kafara. If it's done with a valid reason, there's also no kafara. So kafara is paid for breaking a fast intentionally without a valid reason. The old. وَيُسْتَحَبُّ لِلشَّيْخِ الْكَبِيرِ. If a person is old and he's not fasting, or if he or she is not fasting due to just old age or very sick, or they have an illness that they don't feel they will get well from. Like if a person, say for example, is diabetic, and he knows that for the rest of my life I can't fast. The doctors told him, look, you have to be eating such and such, or he knows from personal experience. So that person, that diabetic person, or that old person, or whatever sickness it is, he knows that it's not like another sick person that says, well, I may be sick for a few weeks, for a few months, for a few years, but I'm going to get better. I'll be able to go back to fasting. So that for that person, once he goes back to fasting, he's just going to make up those days. For the old person, or the person that's sick, that doesn't think they're going to ever be able to fast again, it's recommended for them to be giving 1 mud of food for every day. It's not an obligation for them to do it, but it's recommended. And that's another thing that some people have a misunderstanding, because in the Quran the ayah says that if a person is old, or if a person is old, not able to fast anymore, then he should feed. But that order to feed is an order of recommendation. It's not an order of obligation. Meaning that it's not an obligation for that old person or that person with a lifetime sickness to feed. It's merely recommended for each day. وَالْإِطْعَامُ فِي هَذَا كُلِّهِ مُدٌّ عَلَى كُلِّ يَوْمٍ يَقْضِيهِ. So the amount of feeding the people, the fidya, in both the pregnant or the nursing woman or the old, this feeding of people is called a fidya. Feeding people in this context consists of giving away 1 mud of each day, which has to be made up. And 1 mud is if you fill up both your hands with food, and you don't lay them flat when you put them together. You don't have them flat together, and you don't have them very close. It's just average opening, and it's actually the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. So the measurement's already done. So you don't have to go in with the average size hands and weigh it out. The measurement is already known. It's the mud of the Prophet ﷺ. And if you ever go to Medina, sometimes they sell little cups made out of metal, and it'll say on it, "This is the mud of the Prophet ﷺ." So they still know the measurement, and they've made cups to that measurement. So if you have that, you can just use that. If you don't, you can just use what they've calculated out, which is about 0.51 liters of food. Half a liter of volume, because it's volume, it's not weight. It's a volume of half a liter of food. وكذلك يطعم من فرط في قضاء رمضان حتى دخل عليه رمضان آخر. Another time that a person has to pay fidya, someone who fails to make up missed days before the following Ramadan should also feed a poor person for each day they still owe. So say, for example, you missed days from Ramadan last year. You should have made up those days before this Ramadan comes in. If you delay making up those days and now this Ramadan comes in, then for each day you've missed, you have to give 1 mud of food. You have to pay a fidya. And because this is an obligation for them to feed, and it's an obligation for them to make it up before the Ramadan. So if they don't, if a person does not make up the days they missed from the previous Ramadan until this Ramadan's come in, there's a sin for each day, and they also have to pay. They have to give a fidya, 1/2 liter of food. Now, making up the days, say for example, a person had 15 days, and he said, "I'm going to make them up in Sha'ban." If he goes all the way to the end of Sha'ban, 15th day of Sha'ban, now he has 15 days. He could have made them any time up during the year, but he delayed until the last. He's given he's given the time all the way up until the end of Ramadan. If he becomes sick, it's not counted against him, because it's not considered that he was careless. If he had 15 days of Ramadan to make up and he delayed it until the last week of Sha'ban, now he only has 7 days. So he makes up those 7 days, and for the other 8 days, he's going to have to give a fidya for each day. Now, sometimes it happens, like especially with pregnant and nursing women. The first Ramadan she's pregnant. By the next Ramadan that comes in, she's nursing. And if she falls into the category of the one that can break her fast because she's nursing, because she can't find anybody else, or the child's not accepting somebody else. So the one Ramadan she's fasting, the next Ramadan, and the whole entire year she's nursing. And she's not given a chance, or say she was given a chance in the early part of the year, she was okay, but then now she was gonna make her days up in Rajab and Sha'ban. When Rajab and Sha'ban comes again, she feels that the eating is going to harm her milk production. So now she's going to break it as a nursing woman, and she doesn't make up those days until the next Ramadan comes up. For that person, she doesn't have to pay a fidya, because she had a valid reason for not making up those days before the next Ramadan came in. So the person that has to feed is a person that did not make up the days from the previous Ramadan, and they did not have a valid reason to make them up before the next Ramadan came in. Yeah, we're only talking about making up the days. So like, say a person missed a week of Ramadan. They either... and they had a valid excuse for breaking it. So now they have to make up those 7 days. So they have to make up those 7 days anytime from Shawwal, from after the first day of Eid till the next Ramadan comes in, except for the days of Eid. It's not permissible to fast on those. If she doesn't, or if he doesn't do that, As long as she makes them up before the next Ramadan, there's no feeding associated with it. If they have makeup days that they owe makeup days and a kafara, and they're choosing to do the fasting the 60 days, those 60 days are done whenever, and they have to be fasted consecutively. But the ones that have to be made up before the next Ramadan are the qada days. Does that answer your question? Well, if it's not clear, ask again. And she wasn't doing so because of pregnancy? Okay, well, if it was pregnancy, there's no fidya. If it was nursing, then for each day she pays those. She can pay the fidya before she even makes up her days. So she can get that. She should actually. You should get anything that you're owed, that you owe. You should get it out as quick as possible. So say the nursing woman, 94. She broke her fast in Ramadan because she was nursing, 30 days. After Ramadan, she should just go ahead and feed those people. Now she has those 30 days to make up. She's not able to make those up for whatever reason before the next Ramadan comes in. So she does not have to pay another fidya for delaying the fast until the next Ramadan, because she delayed the fidya and she had a valid reason. Now, it doesn't accumulate every single year. Like say you had fast that you owe from 10 years ago, and you say, every single year I delayed it until the next Ramadan comes in, so I have to pay a mud every year. No, it's only for the first year. So say a person had 5 days from the previous year. He didn't fast them until this Ramadan comes in. He owes 5 muds, a mud of food for those days. But say he delays it again, he should make it up before the second Ramadan comes in. It's also an obligation. But say he delays it now, the second Ramadan has come in. He doesn't say, well, here's another 5. It's only for the first year. The Shafi'is say it accumulates every single year. But for the Malikis, it's just the first year. Is that clear? ولا صيام على الصبيان حتى يحتلم الغلام وتحيض الجارية. Children are not obliged to fast until such a time as a boy has his first wet dream or a girl has her first menstrual period, because it is when children reach physical maturity. وبالبلوغ لزمتهم الأعمال والأبدان فريضة. Children are not obliged to fast until such a time as a boy has his first wet dream or a girl has her first menstrual period. So that's the age of bulugh. So before that, they're not obliged to fast, of course. There's nothing is an obligation upon a child before bulugh, before the signs of responsibility appear. Those are 2 signs, and in the sections of, or it might be other thing, like they mentioned for the boy, the wet dream, or the girl, her first menstrual period. Those would be signs that she's now at an age of taklif, an age of responsibility. Meaning that everything haram, they have to stay away from. Everything wajib, they have to do. Everything an obligation, they have to do. Other signs that are for both of them is the growing of coarse pubic hair, coarse hair on the genitals area. So if once they reach the age of maturity, and that's going to differ with different people and in different lands and in different times. Once they do that, now they have to pray, they have to fast, they have to stay away from all the haram, do all the obligations. Before that time, he's saying that it's not an obligation and it's not even a recommendation for them to fast. Whereas in the prayer, when the child is 7 lunar years, then it becomes recommended for the parent to tell them to pray. To say, start praying, but with no physical reprimand for not praying. Once the child, the boy or the girl, is 10 years old, then there should be a light physical reprimand if they do not pray. And the same thing, if they don't pray and also do wudu. So it's not just they go through the motions of prayer. Once they're 7 years old, they should be requested to pray and to do wudu for the prayer. But a person shouldn't think, well, fasting and prayer, those are, 2 pillars of Islam, and the kind of deduce it himself. Well, the hadith says when the child is 7, order them to pray. Well, I'm also going to order them to pray, to fast when they're 7, and whether it's 10, I'm going to physically reprimand them if they don't fast. He's saying that's not the case. That request is specifically for the prayer. And Allah, and the reason for these, or he says because it is when children reach physical maturity that all physical acts of worship become obligatory for them. Allah Ta'ala says when your children reach physical maturity, they should seek permission to enter, meaning to enter into the room, because now the awrah becomes haram for them to see. And they're considered adults. Now, one thing for parents to remember, and for people that inshallah will become parents, that even though children, nothing is haram upon them, that hurma or that prohibition of anything goes back to the parent. So the child himself cannot gain any sin for doing haram actions, but his parent or his guardian will be getting that sin. So a parent, if they see the kid doing something that's for an adult is considered haram, if they see him like the clear things, drinking alcohol or eating najasa, eating unslaughtered meat, improperly slaughtered meat, or eating any type of najasa, the parent shouldn't say, well, he's still a kid, it's not haram for him. No, if the parent or the guardian or any Muslim adult sees that child doing something that's for an adult is considered haram, they have to stop them. If they don't stop them, the child has no sin upon him, but that sin goes back to the parent. And the same thing goes for, those aren't usual things that kids get involved, like at that age, drinking najasa or eating najasa. But other things like backbiting, making fun of people, those type of things, the haramat, anything that's haram for an adult, the child should be prevented from doing that. وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ جُنُبًا ولم يتطهر أو امرأة حائض طهرت قبل الفجر فلم يغتسلا إلا بعد الفجر أجزأه ما يصوم ذلك اليوم. If someone who has not done ghusl wakes up after Fajr in a state of janaba, or if the period of a woman who has been menstruating finishes before Fajr and she does not do the ghusl till after Fajr, then fasting that day is valid in both cases. So if for whatever reason, if a person is a man or woman is in a state of janaba, or the woman was menstruating and the menstruation was over before Fajr, so now she has to do a ghusl. So either the person, the man or the woman that's in a janaba, has to do a ghusl, or the woman, and now Fajr comes in, and they're fasting, like the menstruation stopped for the woman, she made the intention to fast that next day, but she did not do the ghusl until after Fajr, or the man or the woman did not wash from their janaba until after Fajr, then their fast is correct. And this is because it's been proven in a Sahih hadith, the Prophet ﷺ would sometimes be in a state of janaba, and he would not do his ghusl until after the dawn has come in. ولا يجوز صيام يوم الفطر ولا يوم النحر ولا يصام اليومين اللذان بعد يوم النحر إلا المتمتع الذي لا يجد هديا. Fasting is not permitted on the day of Eid al-Fitr. So the Eid al-Fitr, which is the day right after Ramadan, the first day of Shawwal, that Eid is one day and it's haram to fast on that day. Or the day of Eid al-Adha, the Eid that's after the Hajj, the pilgrimage, and that's 3 days, nor should anyone fast on the 2 days. So the Eid al-Adha, the day of the Eid, or the 2 days after it. It's haram to fast those 3 days. Unless he is doing Hajj tamattu' and does not have an animal to sacrifice. So that's the only person that's allowed to fast on the 2 days after Eid is the person doing tamattu'. Tamattu' is when you've done a Hajj, and before going to your back to your home country or your homeland, you want to do a Umrah. Because normally the Umrah and the Hajj are separated. But if a person, like you do a Umrah one time, one trip to Mecca, and you do a Hajj another time, and either the Umrah first or the Hajj first. But if you do your Hajj, and then once you finish from your Hajj, you go back and you do the rites of Umrah, that's called tamattu', meaning that you're doing the Hajj and the Umrah both in the same trip to Mecca. For that person, he has to slaughter an animal, a hedi. If he cannot find the hedi, then he fasts 10 days. And he consider those 2 days part of his fasting, the 10 days. So if a person is in that situation, they can know they can fast those 2 days if they're doing it for tamattu'. Otherwise, all 3 days of the Eid al-Adha, the first day, which is the Eid, you do not fast, nor the subsequent 2 days. وَالْيَوْمُ الرَّابِعُ ولا يصومه متطوع ويصومه من نذره أو من كان في صيام متتابع قبل ذلك. The fourth day of the Eid, the Eid is 3 days, but then there's the fourth day of the stoning, because in the Hajj, the first day, the day of Eid, you have the one stoning at Aqaba, you shave your head, you go and you do your tawaf of Ifadah, and then those 3 days after the first day of Eid, you do 3 days of Rami. You go to Minan, and you do the throwing of the stones those 3 days. So the first 2 days of Minan, it's haram to fast. The third day of Minan, which is now the fourth day, like if you look at all the Eid and the subsequent 3 days, so that fourth day it's makruh to fast. Unless a person had sworn that he's going to fast that day. Like he said, I promise that I will fast every single Thursday. And that fourth day of the third day of Rami, which is the fourth day of the Eid, it happens to be a Thursday, then he can fast that without there being a karaha associated to it, without it being disliked. But if a person has not promised to fast that day, then it's makruh for him to fast. So there should be no voluntary fasting on the fourth day either, but if someone has vowed to fast or previously broken off a consecutive fast, then they should fast that day. Or if a person, say, was fasting a consecutive fast, they had promised to fast 1 month consecutively, or they were doing a kafara for breaking a fast, or they were doing lihar, and they were doing the kafara of fasting 60 days. So fasting 60 days consecutively means as long as you're able to, and there's no physical prevention and there's no shari'i prevention. So if you're fasting 60 days and a physical prevention comes in, like you're sick, then you have the right to stop, of course. When you get well, you start back up. So that's not considered a break in the 60 days. If you do it without a reason, then you, like say you fasted 59 days, and then the 60th day you said, I'm just going to break the fast, and then I'll make it up the next day, you wipe out all those 60 days. So it means 60 days consecutively. Or there's a sharia prevention, like the days of Eid. It's haram to fast. But if a person says, well, I'm halfway into my consecutive fast of kafara, I've done 20 days, 30 days, and now Eid comes up. Well, the first day of Eid, you're excused. The second and the third day of Eid, you're excused. The fourth day, you're not. You go back to fasting. Person wouldn't say, well, for other people, it's makruh, I'm excused. They're saying, no, it's not haram, so you're not excused for each day. If a person's doing that, that's 60 consecutive days for each day missed in Ramadan. ومن أفطر في نهار رمضان ناسيا فعليه القضاء فقط وكذلك من أفطر فيه لضرورة من مرض ومن سافر سفرا تقصر فيه الصلاة فله أن يفطر. If you break the fast in Ramadan out of forgetfulness, you only have to make up that day. So say during the day of Ramadan, you ate something accidentally, or you're rinsing out your mouth for wudu, and you swallowed some of the water, or some of the water got to the throat, then you know that your fast is broken. After Ramadan, you have to make up that day. But there's you do not have to feed. You don't have to pay a kafara. But the rest of that day, you wouldn't say, well, my fast is broken, I can eat the rest of the day. No, you have to do imsak now. Because it's still haram for you to eat or drink anything during the daylight hours of Ramadan. So your fast is not considered a valid fast. It's broken, but you still have to do imsak. You have to not eat or drink anything until Maghrib time. The same applies if you are forced to break the fast due to illness. So if you're forced to break the fast due to illness, like we were discussing earlier today and last week, because the person thinks they will get sick or they will increase their sickness. But if a person has the right to break the fast due to illness and he does so, then they don't have to make up the kafara. No, she breaks the fast. At that point, once the woman starts menstruating in the daylight hours, it's wajib for her to break her fast. Like fast in the nighttime? Yeah, the question is if a person has a medical condition and they think that if they sleep during the daytime and do their whatever they need, whatever they normally do in the nighttime, in the daytime they do it at night, so they switch their days around. They're sleeping in the day or the majority of the day, and they're working or doing whatever they need to at night, and that will allow them to fast even while they're sick. You can do that. That's permissible. I mean, people do that even if they're healthy. If you go to Hijaz, or nothing moves during the daytime. Which is not a good thing. They just go inside their houses, lock the doors, turn on the air conditioner, sleep all day when Maghrib time comes, and then you see, if anybody's seen it, like everything comes to life, and people go to the marketplace, which isn't good, because then they all go to the malls, take their families, and just, instead of spending the daytime in ibadah and the nighttime in ibadah, because you're going to talk about the importance of ibadah during Ramadan, they're going to restaurants, taking their families, I'll mention this not to make people laugh, but actually to just show like the seriousness. But I know somebody that in the Emirates, and there's a lot of the signs of the end of time like going on in the Emirates. The barefoot, destitute shepherds that are competing with each other to build high building, that's going on right there. They're just putting up buildings, especially in Dubai, all the time. And now they're trying to get the world's tallest building. And then China came out with a plan that makes it taller, and then Dubai said, no, we're going to make it even taller. So that's they're and they're just going crazy with like building and thing, and it has one of the highest prostitution rates in the world. Now they're trying to make it the center, like like when you hear New York and London, they want to put Dubai right next to it. So they're having conventions, shows, concerts, beauty pageants, all those things. And he said he went. I know a guy not even in Dubai, in Al Ain, that was it's a lot less crazy than Dubai, but he went to the mall in Ramadan at nighttime, and then he hears like on the second floor all this noise, clapping and stuff. And so when he gets up there to see all that stuff, it's all these families, men, women, pushing their kids. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's bright. And then they have midget wrestlers that they're watching in Ramadan. So that's crazy. So they're just like, yeah, nah. It's what? Right. So that's why I wanted to clarify that. Yeah, the woman that experiences menstruation during the day and then breaks her fast, does she do imsak? The answer is no. Once she has that valid reason to break the fast, then the rest of the day she does not have to do imsak. She does have to make up that day. Yeah, Ramadan. Before you go to your grave, every single day that ever passed on you of Ramadan, as a responsible adult, you're baligh, you have to make it up. Whether you broke it during the menstruation, fasting, sickness, forgetfulness, intentionally breaking up, whether you had to pay a kafara, whether you did not have to pay a kafara, whatever reason, just like the prayer, every single prayer that ever was wajib upon you from the time you're baligh, you have to make it up before you go to your grave. And the same thing for Ramadan, yeah. If a person is not sure when they should have started fasting, or they're not sure like how many fasts that they owe, they make up a number of days until they're sure that they do not. The important thing, whether it's in making up fasts, making up prayers, paying kafaras, paying zakat, the important thing is that you get out of shak. So if you have shak about any of those matters, you pay more zakat, you fast more fasts, you pay more kafaras, you pray more prayers until you get out of the realm of shak, and you don't have to reach 100% certainty, but you have to get at least like ghalabat al-dhann, like you're almost certain. You're like, I'm now almost certain that I've fasted all my fasts, prayed all my prayers, and did all that. Right. For the person that the question was if a woman is menstruating during the middle of the day, and then it comes to the point where she began the day fasting. During the middle of the day she began menstruating, and she has to break her fast, but there's nothing for her to break her fast on. What does she do? Well, when it says break the fast, it just means merely by intention. So as soon as she realizes that she's now menstruating, she cannot say, well, I'm still fasting. She has to make the intention, realize in her heart that she's no longer fasting. And that's enough to break the fast. In fact, even if a person does not have a reason, like if he's a healthy person, no valid reason to break the fast during the middle of the day, he says to himself, I'm not fasting anymore. That broke his fast. He doesn't have to even eat anything. The same thing with the prayer. You can be in the middle of the prayer and you just have the intention, I'm not praying. That would break it. The other signs. Little kids, when they see their parents fasting or they see them praying, even kids like 2, 3, 4 years old, they're trying to pray with their parents. But he doesn't say anything until they're 7, then he says something. Then when they're 10, there's a light physical reprimand. And that physical reprimand should not leave a mark or cut the skin. There should not be any wound or any mark left by it. No bruises. No, redness, if it goes away after, usually, even if you just touch your hand, you'll get a little bit of redness. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about like breaking the skin, leaving a bruise, leaving a long mark. That would be haram. And it's only if you think there's benefit. What's that? Then for the question was asked if the fasting, even before they get to that age of 10 where they should be lightly physically reprimanded, or should they be encouraged to fast? As far as an encouragement, there's no recommendation. It's not like mandub that he should fast. If he wants to, he can do that. If you see that the kid, because it's not mandub, I would say don't if the kid wants to do it, let him do it. Or but you should break it up. Like say, okay, try fasting half of the day, or yeah. If he wants to fast himself, you can kind of guide him along. Like say, okay, fast half the day, or just fast from food, but drink water or do something, as long as he knows that it's not going to harm the kid. If it's too early, he can just let him fast like an hour or 2 hours or something like that. But he shouldn't say why don't you try fasting? Because it's not recommended. ومن سافر سفرا تقصر فيه الصلاة فله أن يفطر. If you are on a journey for which you can shorten the prayers, you are permitted to break the fast, even if there is no particular need to do so, making up any days missed later, but according to us, it is better to fast. وعليه القضاء والصوم أحب إلينا. So if you're fasting or if you're traveling a distance to where you can shorten the prayers, which is considered 48 miles. Now 48 miles is 48 Sharia miles. And 48 Sharia miles is equivalent. There's two opinions how long is each Sharia mile. So the equations will either give you about 31 miles or 51 miles. So according to the dominant opinion of the Maliki madhab, it's 48 kilometers. That the Sharia mile is 2,000 dhira'. Dhira' is from your thumb to your elbow, which is about half of a meter. So 2,000 dhira' is 1,000 meters, which is a kilometer. So 48 Sharia miles, according to the dominant opinion of the Maliki madhab, is 48 kilometers, which works out to be, I think, like 30 miles. Work it out if you want to do it exactly, but 48 kilometers. If you're traveling that distance from the edge of your city of residence, your place of residence, to the edge of the place that you're going to, there's 48 Sharia miles, 48 kilometers, then you can break your fast during the travel and while you're there, as long as you're not there for more than 4 days. It's just like shortening the prayers. The only difference is, like shortening the prayers, say you left 8 o'clock in the morning after the sun has already risen, after dawn has already come in. You can shorten your prayers as soon as you leave your city limits. So you're shortening the prayer starts right away. As far as breaking that fast for that travel, you have to have been outside of your city limits before Fajr comes in. So a person can't say, well, like right now, I started fasting today, for example, it's a day for Ramadan, 12 o'clock during the daytime, I'm going to leave my city limits. I'm going to say, well, now I'm a traveler, I'm going to break my fast. No, because you started the day as a resident, it came in upon you as a resident, and now it's wajib for you to fast that day of Ramadan, and you cannot break it. Traveling during the day is not a valid reason. If you're already in travel, it's not wajib for you to fast. But you can fast if you want to, and that's actually the recommended thing, according to the Maliki scholars. If you're coming from where? Okay. It's going to be very long. How long is the flight? Okay. So you're saying if you left there after the day began in Singapore. Well, how long were you in Singapore? Okay. Yeah, if the hukum is if you... So, yeah, if you were there a week or 2 weeks, you're no longer a traveler. You're now a resident. So you don't leave the city until after daylight hours. You're supposed to be fasting that day. Say it does turn into an 18-hour flight. The 18-hour flight makes the daylight hours, 24 hours. You still have to fast that entire time. Yeah, but it's just about daylight, sunrise and sunset. It's not 24 hours. Because you might have, you might be in the northern northern Canada, in a city called Nunavik, where there's a small population. There are Muslims there, and so they have daylight for like 6 months. They fast based on the closest normal place, because they're way out of the norm. You're still experiencing a normal sunrise and a sunset. It's a little bit longer. Some places you get into Canada, it'll be, or actually even in northern England, they have when they're fasting in the summertime, Maghrib is at 10 o'clock, Isha is at 12 o'clock, Fajr is like at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. If you go even further, it's going to be more. So by the time you don't, and sometimes the Shafaq doesn't even go, like in northern Canada, and not even northern Canada, just go up to like Edmonton. The Shafaq during the summertime doesn't go down. So the sun goes down, there's the redness in the sky, it stays redness, a little bit of redness until Fajr comes in. So that might give you an 18-hour day, a 20-hour day. You still have to fast all those 20 hours. Once you get into a place where there's no longer no sunset, no sunrise, then you go according to the closest normal place. So in your situation, you're still experiencing a sunrise and a sunset. So you're still in normal situation. Now, if you say, well, it's very long and it's going to cause hardship, then you go into the person that's sick. Like if you're becoming, exhausted and you're getting sick because of that long fast, then you can break the fast, not because you're a traveler, but because you're sick. But as long as you're experiencing a normal sunrise and a normal sunset, you have to fast and pray according to those times, even though it might be very awkward. What's that? Oh no, traveling is for 4 days, and he says it there. وَمَنْ سَافَرَ أَقَلَّ مِنْ أَرْبَعَةِ Oh no, yeah, he doesn't mention it here. He's mentioned it in the section of prayer. But if you're there for more than 4 days, 4 days or more, then you're no longer a traveler. So if during the time you leave the city until your place of destination, even if it's only, however long it is, even if it's 2 months, you're a traveler, you don't have to fast, and you shorten your prayers. Once you get to your place of residence, if you have the intention of staying there for 4 days or more, then you break your fast. Then you have to fast, and you no longer shorten your prayers. And just to reiterate the point that if you're going to do that, if you're going to break your fast during the travel, you have to have left your city limits before Fajr comes in. And at least in Mauritania, a lot of people that do the public transportation, like the cars and things, normally they go at any time of the day. But during Ramadan, they know that, like, okay, we're traveling and we don't want to be fasting because it's a hardship, so we have to be out of the city limits before Fajr. So a lot of the cars are going out before Fajr. ومن سافر أقل من 4 برد فظن أن الفطر مباح له فأفطر فلا كفارة عليه وعليه القضاء وكل من أفطر متأولا فلا كفارة عليه. If anyone travels less than 4 male stages, 48 miles, and again that's 48 Sharia miles, which is 48 kilometers, and breaks the fast thinking it is permissible to do so, they do not have to do a kafara, although they must make up the day. So say a person begins travel, and he's traveling either less than 48 kilometers, like he's just going from Hayward to, is Gilroy more than 30? Yeah, there's more. San Jose, but he's traveling. So he says, well, I'm a traveler. I don't have to. I'm leaving my city now. I'm going to San Jose. I'm a traveler. It's less than 48 kilometers, 4 burud. Then for that person, because he broke his fast, thinking that it was permissible, because he heard the ayah in the Quran that it says that if you're on a travel, then you can break your fast. So he heard that. Now he says, well, I'm a traveler now. I'm going to break my fast. For him, it was not a valid reason to do so. So in any case, he has to make up that fast. But now the question is, does he have to pay kafara or not? Kafara is the expiation that you pay for breaking the fast without a valid reason. Or you broke it without a valid reason, but you had a valid explanation. Like he said, okay, now I realize that as that travel, it wasn't permissible for me to break my fast, but I thought it was. This is a reasonable explanation for him breaking his fast. So for him, he does not have to pay the kafara, but he does have to make up that fast. And the same goes for anybody that breaks the fast for with a valid explanation. They do not have to pay a kafara. They do have to make up that day, but they do not have to pay kafara. If a person breaks it with a unreasonable explanation, then he like everybody else, he has to make up that day, but he also has to pay a kafara. So, for example, say he read in the ayah, أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيِّتًا, talking about ghiba. Do any of you like to eat the dead flesh of your brother? So during the day of Ramadan, he did ghiba of somebody. So he thought to himself, well, in the Quran it says, أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيِّتًا, that Allah says that you ate the flesh of your dead brother. So doing ghiba is like eating the dead flesh. So because I did ghiba, I ate something, so I broke my fast, so I'm going to start eating now because I broke my fast. So for him, that's not a valid explanation. That's like ta'wil ba'id. Or if a woman, like the examples that we were given earlier, she says, well, I'm not menstruating now, but in the middle of the day tomorrow, I'm pretty sure I'm going to start menstruating, so I'm going to start the day not fasting because I'm going to break my fast anyway. That's ta'wil ba'id. It's an unreasonable explanation. Or a person said, you know what, the first week of every month, I get a bad fever that's going to cause me not to be able to fast. Tomorrow's the first week of the month, so I'm not going to even start the day fasting because I'm going to have to break it anyway. That's not a valid explanation. And they give, in the longer text of fiqh, they give more examples. So if a person had previously broken the fast without a valid reason, then he should pass it on to somebody that knows those valid, those reasonable and unreasonable explanations to see whether or not he or she owes a kafara. And then just, we kind of went over, but fasting while traveling, if there's no hardship, and we're talking about like a serious hardship. Fasting normally has a hardship associated with it. Feeling of thirst, feeling of tiredness, hunger, and so forth. But if it's extreme, if it's really hard, like really bad thirst, really hard hunger, then that's a hardship that if he's going to experience while traveling, then it's better for him to break his fast. But if there's no hardship, to fast while traveling, like now a lot of people say, well, we're traveling by airplane now, or we're traveling by car, by air-conditioned cars. It's easy, so we should not have a excuse to break the fast. The fuqaha say no. There are certain things in the Sharia that are built upon like you do it like ta'abbudan. The Quran says that if you're traveling, you can break the fast. So you can do it even if it's really easy. It's better for you to fast. It's actually recommended for you to fast, but it's not wajib. So a person shouldn't say, well, because now it's traveling by plane, by car, it's easier. No, because that hukum is a ta'abbudi. We don't know that's the way it is. There's other things that are based on illah, they are based on a reason, and that if that reason changes, the hukum will change. But if it's ta'abbudi like this, the hukum doesn't change, even if the situation changes. Okay, we'll stop here because the next section is kafara. So the next section goes into kafara. We'll finish that up next week. So last 15 minutes, we'll give it to questions. The question is about the fasting of Shawwal. He don't go into it specifically in the text, but the fasting of the 6 days of Shawwal, because there's the hadith the Prophet ﷺ said that anybody who fasts Ramadan and then follows it with 6 days from Shawwal, it's as if he fasted the whole year. So the fasting of 6 days of Shawwal, is considered mandub, recommended. According to Imam Malik, it does not have to. It actually is makruh to do it immediately after the Eid, if it's consecutive. Thinking that it's sunnah to do it consecutively right after the Eid, and if the person is like somebody that is like followed within the community, like if he does something, people will also do that. So, because it's any 6 days of Shawwal. It doesn't have to be consecutive, and it doesn't have to be immediately after Eid. And so Imam Malik was trying to stress that point, saying that it's any 6 days of Shawwal. The hadith says, fast Ramadan and then follow it with 6 days of Shawwal. It means any 6 days of Shawwal. It doesn't mean the first 6 days right after Eid. And so he considered it makruh to do 6 days in a row right after Eid, thinking it's sunnah if a person is one that's followed. If he doesn't think it's sunnah, and he just wants to finish it, that's permissible. Or if he does 3 days and then 3 days, that's fine. Or if he breaks, if he misses any one of those conditions, it's no longer makruh to do that. So it's only if he's doing it consecutively, thinking it's sunnah right after the Eid, and he's a person that's followed. Now, and the reason for this is in some place, the reason sometimes the ulama would consider things makruh is, especially Imam Malik said the dhari'ah, that he wants to cut off a pretext. He wants to have this prevent something else. And it might be that he's trying to prevent another action, a bid'ah, or something haram, or he's even trying to prevent a belief. So for example, what he was trying to prevent here, or what's clear from his considering it to be makruh, is that if a person gets into that mindset that, okay, I'm Maliki and I'm following Imam Malik, he considers that makruh, I'm not going to do it. He's never going to think that that's sunnah, or that it's even wajib, because it's not sunnah to do it that way. Because Imam Malik saying, if something is not sunnah, don't think it is sunnah. Like there's people, like sometimes you see people like wear their shoulder cloths over their shoulder. It's just because that's where they put it. But some people think it's actually sunnah. So somebody asked me, is it sunnah to put your rida on your right shoulder or your left shoulder? It's not sunnah. It's just that happens to be an easy way to carry your rida if you want to do it. But it's not sunnah to wear a rida on your right shoulder. It's sunnah to wear a rida over your shoulders in prayer. If you want to wear it as an imama, if you want to tie it around your waist afterwards, if you want to put it in your backpack, doesn't matter how you carry it. But the problem is thinking something is sunnah that's not sunnah. That's where you get bid'ah. Because people think that this is a part of the deen. So that's why Imam Malik, in certain instances, he would consider something makruh to prevent people from doing that. So you do have people that think not only is it sunnah, and then it's a worse bid'ah if they think it's wajib. So now you have people that if they see somebody not fasting those 6 days of Shawwal, they'll get mad at him, as if he's not doing something wajib. So there's clearly people stressing on doing those 6 days right after Ramadan so much that now they think it's wajib. They think it's an extreme sunnah, and they think some even think it's wajib, and they'll get angry at people that don't do it. Or after those 6 days, they'll have another Eid. Like another Eid, when we did an Eid to finish Ramadan, that's fine. Don't have another Eid to finish the 6 days of Shawwal. So those are that's the 6 days of Shawwal. The question was for a woman, if she has qada because of menstruating during Ramadan or pregnancy or nursing, or for anybody else, if they missed some days in Ramadan, now they have qada, can they do those qada? Do they do those qada before the 6 days of Shawwal, or do they do the Shawwal? Because the question is probably coming up because, you know, if you have qada prayers, if you have make-up prayers to do, you don't do nafila prayers. But in the qada, it's different. It's makruh to do nafila fasts as long as you have qada fast to make up. But what you can do is you can have a double intention. You can make up those fasts with the intention of making up the fast and fasting the 6 days of Shawwal. There's a difference of opinion whether that would be considered like can you have a double intention or not. And one of the stronger opinions in the at least according to the Maliki scholars is that it's sufficient. So if you do that in Shawwal, having the intention to make up a prayer and the nafila prayer, you get both rewards. The same thing if you owe extra prayers and you want to pray Taraweeh. Well, you don't go, he's going to talk about it. Don't go pray Taraweeh, just pray your qada prayers. When you come into the masjid, instead of tahiyyatul masjid, if you have qada prayers, pray one of your qada prayers and it suffices for your tahiyyah. And in fact, it's worth more than a tahiyyah, because a tahiyyah is a nafila prayer and a fard is a fard. So 1 million nafilas doesn't equal 1 second of a fard prayer. Because people have to get that in their mind that there's, and he'll talk about that in the section of the Taraweeh. Just as another mention, fasting the 3 days of the 3 full moon days of each month. There's a hadith that's talking about fasting the full moon nights, which is the 13th, 14th, and 15th day of each lunar month. The Prophet ﷺ recommended that. According to Imam Malik, he considered that makruh. Also said to the dhari'ah so that people wouldn't think that it's like an obligation to fast those 3. That fasting 3 days of any month is any days. It doesn't have to be those 3 full moons. So he said he considered that fasting the full moon nights with the intention, thinking that it's sunnah, is makruh. So that people don't get to the point of thinking that you have to be fasting those days. Is that clear from the sister's side on the question? Allahu A'lam, I don't know. I know that the 6 days of Shawwal is from Shawwal. But it's not for praying. Yeah, for praying for the traveler, once you're outside of your city limits, no matter what time of day it is, you start praying. So even if, say, Dhuhr time came in and you were in your residence and you got outside of and you didn't pray Dhuhr, and you didn't pray, and you left your residence before praying Dhuhr, but after Dhuhr time came in, and now you're outside of your residence, you can shorten your prayer. It's not like fasting. Like fasting, you would say, okay, I was in my residence when the day came in, when the beginning of the fast came in, so I can't break it anymore. It's different in the prayer. Even if you were in your residence when the prayer time came in, and you left your residence and there's still that prayer time, you prayed as a traveler. You don't say, well, the prayer time came in while I was a resident, and even though I'm a traveler now, I'm going to consider myself a resident. No, the sunnah is that you shorten it. If you lengthen the prayer, it's makruh, your prayer is valid. Is it a lifetime or a year? Allahu A'lam. Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. No, but people have that, people think that the question was, if the hadith says that fasting the 6 days of Shawwal with the Ramadan is like fasting a lifetime it's like fasting for your lifetime. Then somebody says, well, what I'll do is I'll fast Ramadan. I didn't fast Ramadan for 15 years. Now I've made tawbah. I'm going to start fasting. I'm going to fast that Ramadan, and I'm going to fast 6 days of Shawwal, and it's like fasting for a lifetime, so I made up all my qada. And there are people that do say that. And there's even some people that come out with weird things that say, I talked to a shaykh and he told me that if I owe so many years of prayer, but if I pray 40 days of prayer, it's like praying a lifetime or something like that. No, it's you make up every single day and you make up every single prayer. Right. The question was, what is the intention that you make on a voluntary fast? You just make it that it's nafila. Nafila. You just say that this is an extra fast, and you just have the intention that you know that this is not wajib. Any last questions? Yeah. If no, injections do not break the fast as long as it doesn't reach, because the point is like having something reach the stomach or reach the throat, and IVs, as far as I know, doesn't. It just stays in the bloodstream. The question was, if a person traveled the distance allowed for shortening prayers, and then they went ahead when they had the ability to shorten the prayer, they prayed the full length of the prayer. So dhuhr they prayed 4 rak'ahs, and then they realized, oh, I'm a traveler, I should pray 2. Praying 2 rak'ah, shortening the dhuhr, asr, and isha during travel. The dhuhr prayer 4, making it 2. The asr prayer 4, making it 2. The isha prayer 4, making it 2. That's sunnah. So it's not an obligation to do. To go against the sunnah, if anything is considered sunnah by hukum, like its judgment is that it's a sunnah, then to go against it is considered makruh. In the situation of the prayer, it's recommended to repeat that prayer as like a traveler's prayer. Of course, as long as you so then it becomes a nafila prayer. So if a person has qada, they don't repeat it. Their prayer is fine and khalas. They just on the next prayers they shorten it. If a person does not have qada, then it's recommended to repeat the prayer. But the original prayer is still valid. You can do it too. Yeah, you don't have to do to pray the qasr for asr. You don't have to say, well, I prayed dhuhr for dhuhr and asr share the same time. They're mushtarakatay al-waqt. Let me pray. Since I prayed dhuhr 4 rak'ahs, I have to pray asr 4 rak'ahs. No, you can do 4 dhuhr and then 2 asr.
For more information on traditional Islam in America, please contact Zaytuna Institute at 510-582-1979 and on the internet at www.zaytuna.org.